For the first time ever, Tesla's sales figures were down last quarter, due in large part to their leader being a complete lunatic and some people being apprehensive about buying cars from him. Now, is there actually a compelling product in the marketplace that can replace some of the EVs that Tesla sells? Well, on paper, that's what this Polestar 3 aims to do. But can it actually replace the best-selling EV in the world? It's complicated. And I'm going to explain why as we take a look outside, inside. I'm going to show you some of the features and technology of this vehicle. We're going to try and throw a bike in the back to see how usable it is as an SUV. And last but certainly not least, we're going to take it on the road to see what it's like to drive. Many people right now are probably asking, what the hell is a Polestar and how is it going to replace one of the most popular brands in electric vehicles? Well, Polestar is actually Volvo, so it has a pretty big company behind it. They just sort of rebranded their electric car products to not say Volvo. And one thing I do have to say is I do think that this design-wise beats the Model Y. Maybe it's because we see Model Ys everywhere now, but it is a relatively generic looking vehicle, and this has some really nice styling touches to it, which make it stand out from the pack. Really starting first with this sort of hood wing that's on the front, really neat looking feature that you don't really notice unless you're up close. This is also seen here in the Thunder color, which I don't know why the hell it's called Thunder, but it's a nice metallic bluish gray color. I like things like these frameless windows, which just look really cool and are very functional. Also, the back is super attractive. It really reminds me a lot of a Porsche Macan from the taillights and just sort of the overall shape of the rear. Being that this is the performance version too, it has incredibly wide tires on the back, and this thing just looks the business. I think overall design-wise, at least to me, it looks better than the Model Y, but let me know what you think in the comments below. Under the hood is where we find the frunk in electric vehicles like this one. And to call this a frunk is a bit of a stretch. This is a tiny amount of storage in the front of this thing. You could maybe fit a small backpack. Typically, the charging cable is stored up here. So a bit of a disappointment compared to some things like the Model Y, which do have a legitimate frunk. But let's talk performance, because this is the performance version of the Polestar 3, and it makes 671 pound-feet of torque. It also makes over 500 horsepower. They have a couple different models in this lineup. You can get a single motor, you can get a dual motor non-performance, or of course this dual motor performance version. Now, the other thing you should know about is range and battery size. 111 kilowatt hour batteries, pretty good size, and ultimately all of them have that same battery, but the distance depends on if you have a single motor. You can go allegedly 350 miles, all the way down to this one, which is the performance, higher rolling resistance, more horsepower. It only gets 280-ish miles of range, although that's alleged. I have been getting close to 220 in my real world testing. I have so much to talk about when it comes to this interior, so buckle up. There is some real good and some real bad in here. It's like kind of a roller coaster ride. But let's start on a positive note. This is a supremely well-built vehicle, incredibly well screwed together, no squeaks and rattles, nice choice of material as well. You know, I just actually got out of a Tesla Model Y that I took to the airport, and man, that thing was full of like squeaks and rattles, and they just don't seem to be aging well. Volvo, of course, known for vehicles that last. I would expect the same out of this Polestar, and it absolutely feels like it's a very solid and very quiet, well-made vehicle. I talked about the materials as well. Not just the materials, but the design is really nice in here. While it is minimalist, in some ways similar to the Model Y, you do get more features than just that giant center screen that the Model Y does, like a gauge cluster or something resembling a traditional gauge cluster, which is nice. A volume knob, which is a just crazy idea in 2025. Some of this stuff makes this just feel a little bit nicer and a little more traditional than the Model Y. Additionally, this Bowers & Wilkins sound system is very, very nice. I mean, this is already a very quiet car, but when you couple that with the clarity of this sound system, it's excellent. Now, you could say, well, it should be because this is certainly more expensive than the Model Y, and that's fair enough. But still, if we're comparing them just at face value, I definitely like the build quality, design, and overall layout of this better than the Model Y. Now, where does this really fall short? Well, it's mostly technology for me. I actually wrote down a list because when I got this car, I was having so many problems. I was like, I really need to keep track of this. So number one, within 5 minutes of receiving the car, it had a suspension fault and told me to pull over. I pulled over, turned the car off, turned it back on, it went away. So hopefully that's just some weird thing. Apple CarPlay works probably 75% of the time, fails 25% of the time. You never know what it's going to do. I don't know. It looks like it pairs. You go to use Apple CarPlay, it says it's disconnected. I have no idea what's going on there. I've also had this screen, the infotainment, completely shut off on me while I was driving. Just went absolutely black. Rest of the car was working fine. Infotainment went totally away, and that's a problem because everything is operated through there. Settings don't work. The car gives you customizability to where you can choose, do you want lane departure warning on? Do you want to be notified of a distracted driver? I like to turn those off. And even though I turn those off, it still likes to try and lane center for me. It's constantly correcting the wheel, even though, once again, I have that setting off. And the same thing with the attention. If you look to the right to your passenger for a brief second, it will yell at you, even though I have that setting off. Absolutely maddening to give you settings and then they don't actually do anything. And last but not least, this is just things that are broken, like do not work. When you go into reverse, you get a top-down 360 view and a traditional backup camera on the bottom, just like a camera that points backwards. That's great. Like, it's really nice. As you get closer to the object behind you, that traditional backup camera in the back goes away and you just have the 360-degree view, which sounds like maybe okay, but the 360 view has this like very vague section behind the rear bumper that you can't tell like what's going on. So it's just not very confidence inspiring when you're backing up. These are things that really need to be fixed, frankly. Now, a couple other things that aren't broken, but I just think are poor design decisions. This window switch. If you look over here, there's only 2 window switches and there's 4 windows. That's because the window switch operates and then you hit this other button which will swap either front or back, and then you operate those front or back windows. It's just like, why are we doing this? Like, just give me 4 window switches like always. It's really annoying to have to put them down, press another button, put them down. Like, it's really dumb. Adjusting mirrors and your steering wheel is all done through this infotainment. That's really annoying. Opening your glove box. There's no physical way to open it. You have to do it through the infotainment system. And then last but not least, the glass roof, which in fairness to comparing this to the Model Y, of course, all Model Ys have that. It's clearly been benchmarked against it, but there's no way to put a shade up there or it doesn't go opaque. So when you're in a place like Colorado where it's extremely sunny, you just bake in this cabin. Okay, taking a breath. That was obviously a lot. Look, here's the thing about this. I've said some good things. I've said some pretty bad things. What I will say is most of the pretty bad stuff can be fixed with software, right? Like, they're going to get, hopefully, Apple CarPlay working consistently. Hopefully, they get the settings to actually do what you tell them to do. The backup camera, I'm sure that stuff can be resolved. Like, that kind of stuff, and hopefully they resolve the black screen as well. That kind of stuff can hopefully be fixed with over-the-air updates. It's, this other small things that I think overall, design-wise, it's going to be successful, but they really need to put some work in here. I don't know for sure if it's going to be fixed, but I bring it up, and hopefully it can be fixed over the air updates. One of the last things that I'll talk about here, as we always talk about in the interior, is seating, and this ends on a high. The seats are excellent. I mean, these front seats, supportive, comfortable, super adjustable, great to look at. I mean, they're absolutely awesome. They're some of my favorite seats just like in this class of car for sure. Even in like sports cars, these are really great. The back seats as well. You have a lot of room. I have headroom, I have leg room, and that's not something I always have at 6'1", sitting in the back row of a SUV this size. So we talked about mixed bag in here. Let's try and throw a bike in the back to see how usable this SUV is before we take it out on the road. SUVs like this one with the sloped back roof design look cool, but usually struggle in the bike test due to the shorter rear opening. Additionally, the Polestar 3 has a pretty high load floor because of the battery. However, since this one has air suspension, you can actually raise and lower the car with buttons in the rear, which is pretty convenient.
As we expected, my extra large frame mountain bike does not fit with the front wheel on, but once you take it off, there is plenty of room. As always, if you enjoy the bike test and the rest of this video, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button and leaving a comment below so you don't miss future videos.
Well, I said winter's not over here in Colorado, and look what happened. It snowed, but that's fine because A, it's gonna be pretty drive, and also we're on snow tires, so whatever, we can go anywhere, especially with all-wheel drive, and that's really what we're gonna get into here with the Polestar. Look, I was pretty hard on this thing when we were talking about the interior segment, but the thing is, if you are going to make a product to compete with Tesla and you want to compete on the technology front, it's got to be really good. And that's just the reality, because Teslas are really good at technology. You can say a lot of things about Tesla as a company, but they get the technology right. And this, it's just so buggy. We've talked about that, but let's talk about the driving dynamics, because that's really the next thing here. When it comes to this experience as a luxury product, this is superior to a Tesla. Now, it does cost more money, of course. We're talking $80,000, $90,000 for this fully loaded version. You could, of course, get it a lot cheaper. But the main place I notice the money, outside of this being, of course, very quiet in terms of little road noise, even on winter tires, which are notoriously loud, very low wind noise as well. It's a very serene experience, but the money feels like it was spent in the chassis and the suspension. This air suspension, oh boy, it's getting real foggy up here. This air suspension is fantastic. If you're looking for a major driving differentiator compared to a Model Y, the Model Y suspension I always think is too firm, too cheap feeling for the product, and this is just far superior. It soaks up bumps like crazy, just kind of floats over stuff, but it still has good body control. The nice part is being that it is, of course, adjustable. You can choose how stiff or soft you want it to be depending on your driving. Oh wow, I was hoping for a view up here, guys, but I didn't realize it was going to be socked in. Maybe it'll get better. So this suspension is just like light years ahead of the Model Y. You pay for it, of course, but it's excellent. The handling is good. Like the steering is really quick, actually. This steering rack, almost too quick, at times a little bit nervous. Like, it's definitely variable, and sometimes the turn-in is like too sharp. It catches you off guard, but that's something that I'll happily deal with. I'd rather have that than just this like super slow, lazy feeling steering. It's also really light, so tactily, it's really easy to interact with. It's not a bummer to like have, there's like a whole bunch of like artificial weight behind it or something like that. The one thing I will say dynamically, because I think the handling is really good with these differentials, it has like excellent characteristics in turns. Like, this thing can actually carve up a canyon probably just as fast as my GT3. Realistically, like a tight canyon with this low down torque and this differential to be able to put power down, all-wheel drive, it's pretty impressive. But the one thing I will say dynamically that I do not like, and I think could use a little more tuning, are these brakes. They're a bit of an on-off switch. Hard to modulate. You know, you kind of get everything up front and then you get deep into the pedal. It's got good brakes and it can slow down, but it's just, you barely breathe on them and it's like really grabbing you. I think it's a combination of the regeneration and physical brakes. I think they could do a little more tuning there, but let's put our foot down. Oh my God, this thing is so fast. Like, every EV is very fast, but I mean, you feel that 700 pound-feet of torque in this thing. Of course, with these driver modes, I kind of complained that some of the stuff doesn't seem to work. The driver attention, the lane departure, you turn that off, it still bothers you. That's annoying. But the one thing that does work is if you set it in range versus performance mode from a power delivery standpoint, it is instant. When you're in range mode, you put your foot down, there's quite a delay. It really gradually brings in power, which I find kind of annoying, because it's like, if I'm buying an electric vehicle, I want the torque whenever I want it, and I'll modulate it with my foot, right? Like, if I want to try and be range friendly, I won't put my foot to the floor, but I get why they have that. Anyway, it's stupid fast. Like 98% of cars are not keeping up with this, genuinely. Like, and that's the crazy part about electric vehicles, is that even really fast sports cars, the immediacy of the electricity and the lack of shifts, it's crazy fast. So this is like, the driving part has kind of made me come around to this car. I still get frustrated driving this thing because of all these little niggles that we talked about in the interior segment, like the things that don't work, the constant, pay attention, lane departure, it's tugging at the wheel all the time. That stuff like really wears on you. It sounds incredibly minor, but it really wears on you when you're just driving a vehicle, because it just feels, I don't know, it's annoying. Like, and your driving experience should never be annoying, and that's ultimately, unfortunately, what this tends to be. Now, I kind of mentioned it, but a lot of this stuff can be fixed with software, and that's good. This product at a base layer, like, the bones are excellent. I love the suspension, far superior to anything Tesla's doing. They got a little bit of ways to go in the technology front. Look, of course, the performance is there. Range is okay, maybe could be slightly better, but I'm also on winter tires, and those aren't exactly known for having great range, and I think you can skip the performance bits. If I was speccing one of these out, let's end with that, I would honestly just go with the single motor long range. Get 350 miles of range, allegedly. It's still going to be plenty quick because it's an EV, and you're going to be able to of course, get that range and get most of this experience. Get the nice interior, the well-built quality, and you don't have to say you own a Tesla. And that seems to be what most people are buying these for. So, hope you guys enjoyed it. Sorry for the socked-in Mount Lookout or Lookout Mountain, and hopefully next time we have a little better view. Catch you on the next one. Oh, hit that subscribe button and like button if you made it this far in the video. Thanks. Appreciate it. Bye.